The single hardest interview question is not how much money do you want to make? It is tell me about yourself. Interview expert Ramon Santillan and I sit down to discuss how the way you answer this interview question can make or break your interview. This conversation is packed with pro tips that he has taught hundreds of people. Secret sauce to not just get you a good job, but to get you the job you actually want and deserve. Let's go. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Power Talks. My name is Griffin, the host of the Citizen Developer channel. And today I'm joined by special guest Ramon Santillan. Ramon, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited for this conversation. I feel like I say that every week, but this one is going to be different. A lot of what we talk about on this show is how can we grow our careers within Microsoft Dynamics and the Power Platform and consulting and all that stuff. But you are an interview expert. So you're a little bit of a different guest than the typical guests we have on this show. And something you had said that really sparked my interest, I was like, we got to get right into this, was that you said something really valuable was the perspective, when interviewing, that the perspective of presenting oneself as the solution to a company's problems, and that is so valuable. I want to ask you why, and maybe how you came up with that, and why that is so important for people to adapt that perspective into how they go about interviewing.
Well, thanks for having me, Griffin. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's jump right into it. That's what we're here for. It's important because a lot of times when people go to an interview, we've been trained in school or even some YouTube videos that tell you, when they ask you, tell me about yourself. You talk about your dreams and hopes and goals. And to me, I tell my clients this, and I tell them, I start off like, please pay attention to what I'm going to say and listen to this very closely. No one cares about you. No one cares about you. Like, we all have our own problems. I'm not saying you're not valuable. I'm not saying you're not important. I'm just saying people care about their problems, not your problems. I'm also not saying companies are evil or corporations are bad. Capitalism is not good. That's not what I'm saying either. I'm just saying when you go to an interview, they don't care about you. They have a problem to solve. And as opposed to, instead of going to telling them like how you want to grow your career and develop your skills and, find a place where you can call home, focus on their problems. And the way I explain to them is this. Think about when you called me to hire me as your interview coach. Maybe you didn't ask me directly, but possibly indirectly. You asked yourself or even me, why should I hire you to be my coach? If my answer was, you should hire me to be your coach because I have a golden retriever and he only likes expensive bison free-range snacks, and I need the money to buy this, you're going to say, well, I don't care about that. That's your problem. My problem is I need to get an interview. I need to get a job. I need to get a career. So I tell the people exactly the same thing. What if instead of answering about my dog, I say, well, the reason you should hire me to be your interview coach is because I work with other people in your same major. This is the result I got for this person, and I'm sure I can do it again with you. People say, oh, okay, good. He's solving my problem, not his problem. I'll solve my problems if I solve their problems. So that's why I tell people, when you go into an interview, and it's not just the tell me about yourself, it's the whole interview theme is what I call how you present yourself to these people. It should be how you can be the solution to their problem. And if you solve their problem, then you'll be able to solve your problem. But first, solve their problem.
Yeah. Okay, you've sparked so many thoughts, so many questions. One, I think that's an incredible thing to think about is how can I answer the question, tell me about yourself, the best way? I think that's like the most generic first interview question, I feel like people ask. And so I think that's really important. But also what you're saying, I can't help but think about how this applies to sales. And I guess I've thought about it like this before, but I'm just making this connection and verbalizing it, is you are selling yourself, right? Just as, yourself, you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you are at the end of the day, selling your services to help people interview, which is in turn them selling themselves to meet these problems. I mean, what's your perspective on that? Like what are some other correlations between interviewing and sales that you see out there?
So I'll tell you, actually, I don't like the term selling yourself because we are not things. We're people. So a lot of people find this very uncomfortable. They find it icky, sales. And I was one of those people. I didn't like selling. But I realized that it is what I have to do as an entrepreneur. I have to sell my services. However, I don't present it that way. And I don't think about it that way. So there's a mind shift that we have to have in ourselves. Instead of thinking, I'm going to sell myself, flip it around and think, I'm looking for people to help with my skills, with my talent, with my experiences. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not. So again, when someone gives me a call looking for my services, and I don't close the sale for whatever reason, I feel bad, not because I didn't close the sale, but because I couldn't convince them that I could help them. And I feel bad because they're going to struggle without my help. A lot of times they do. So I always say, okay, you're not selling anything. You're looking for people to help. Some people need your help. Some people don't need your help. Some people don't want your kind of help. And you don't want to help some people, right? There's some people I'm like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with you, but that's not what I do. Or I don't want to do that kind of work. So the same thing when you're looking for a job, when you're interviewing and presenting yourself, think about this. Who do I want to help? And how do I want to help them? And again, this comes down to like, what kind of industry, what kind of title, what kind of pay, what kind of commutes, remote, in person, all that stuff you have to think about, like, and figure that out first before you start interviewing. So that way, when you ask you about, tell me about yourself, you know how you want to present that information. Here's another thing we'll go back to. Tell me about yourself. People get very frustrated with that question because it seems very open-ended. And I was telling them that it's not open-ended at all. Again, they don't care about you. They care about themselves. So your answer isn't all the things you like to do and want to do and all this stuff. Like, no, they only care about certain kind of things. So instead of all these things that you could talk about, but they don't care, focus on the ones they care about. That small section right there. So tell me about yourself is not open-ended at all. It sounds like it, but it's not. Tell them about the things that they care about. How do you find out the things that they care about? Look at the job description. Look at the company website. Look at the people you're interviewing with. That will give you all the clues you need to find out what they really care about and talk about those things.
Yeah. Okay, so question. I can't help but feel like, obviously, I'm not saying you're wrong at all. Like, I totally agree with everything you're saying. But I also can't help but feel like, how do you answer that question without sounding like a robot or somebody who's just like trying to say the right things? You know, like I personally, I consider myself a storyteller, so it's really hard for me to not want to answer that question. Well, I was born and whatever. I'm not saying I do that, but you know what I mean. Like, how do you take these practical things of, selling, not selling yourself, but explaining how you're the solution to the problem, knowing the problems that they have, knowing what they're exactly looking for, and weaving that into your own story so that you feel personable, you feel like a person who would fit in at their organization.
I always tell people when we're practicing for interviews, and even before then when we're preparing for interviews, before we get an interview, I tell them, let's focus on your interview theme. So how do you want to present yourself? What do you want people to think of you when you hang up the Zoom call, when you leave the room, when you hang up that phone? Once you figure out how you want to be seen, then you know how to answer any question that comes your way. So, and I also tell my clients, you don't have to come up with a script. This isn't about memorizing a line. This isn't a play. To be or not to be, that is the question. If you mess that up, the whole play is ruined, right? But in an interview, there's no way they're going to know the answer that you want to say. Any answer is the right answer. You just have to present it the right way. So if you start your story from the middle and then say, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, there was 5 teammates in this group and I was focused on this thing, this particular part of the project. And then we did this, but no one's going to say, wait a minute, like that's not how the story goes. They don't know, right? I'm not saying you should lie. That's not what I'm saying either. You shouldn't make up things either. Yeah. But, you can tell the story any which way you want because it's your story. And they're not going to say, no, that part doesn't go there. It actually goes later or before or in the middle. Like, again, don't memorize anything. You just have to sit down and think, like, how do I want to present myself? And think about those examples that you want to talk about. I always tell my clients, write a piece of paper, write down some bullet points of the topics you want to cover. And on the other side of your notebook, write the questions you want to ask. You don't have to memorize any of these things. You don't have to use that mental bandwidth to try to memorize questions you want to ask. Write them down, and that's not a problem. Actually, it's a good thing. And you know why? Because if you have questions ready, that means you're prepared, which means you did work before. So it means you didn't just show up. You were ready for this, and that stands out. People don't think it does, but interviewers notice that. They're like, hey, this guy, this girl, they had questions ready, which means they didn't come up with those questions right now. They had them from before. And you can even tell them, like when I was preparing for this interview, one question that came up was, can you tell me about X? Or tell me about the team, or whatever the question may be. So you want to tell them that you're ready by showing them.
Yeah. That's a great point in that I feel like as you're tempted to almost want to act like you didn't prepare. Do you experience where people you're working with, they don't want to admit that they're, they have their points on the screen over here. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, I'll admit I got the questions I want to ask you right here. I don't mind saying that. But I feel like there's this idea that we don't want to, there's almost like a belief that it's like, no, we don't want them to think that we have these things prepared. What do you say to that?
As Americans, we feel we want to come across that we're just winging it, that we're just naturally good. However, we know that the best of the best, there might be some natural talent there, but the best of the best practice and practice. The LeBron James, the Tom Brady's, the Michael Jordans, name whatever famous person you follow.
Yeah.
They're probably good. They're tall and they're fast and they're strong, right? Some natural talents there. But we all know that they practice, not just during practice, but they practice before practice, they practice during practice, they practice after practice. And they have coaches for specific things that they work on. And that's where the best of the best. That's why they're household names. So a lot of times us as Americans, we feel like, no, I'm just going to win. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be naturally good. But in order to be naturally good, you actually have to practice. There's a clip I saw the other day on it must have been like on YouTube, and it was showing LeBron James. Apparently they've installed a new Lakers arena, I guess. They put new floor. So it was showing this video of LeBron James bouncing the ball 2 times in one spot, taking a step to the left, bouncing it 2 times, taking a step to the left, bouncing it 2 times. When he got to the edge of the court, he took a step back, bounced it 2 times, step to the right, bounced it 2 times. He went the whole court. He did that. Who does that? Someone like LeBron James, because he's the best of the best. There's other people that play with him. They probably didn't do it, right? They might be good. They might get, but we're not going to remember their names. We have to practice. Practice so much you can improvise. Again, we see these superstars, and we think, wow, like he just threw that shot out of nowhere. That's a lie. He's practiced that shot. She's practiced that shot over and over again. To us, the untrained eye, we see, oh, he just caught it because he's so good. He's so good because he's practiced that shot, that throw, that pass, that block, everything. Sure. Practice. Practice so much you can improvise. That's what I tell my clients. We're not going to wing it. Winging's for people who are, just hoping that they get a job. We're not hoping to get a job. We want to make sure we do well in an interview. And we do that by practicing.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question is, do you have maybe this one's on the spot. Do you have a good success story that you feel like is worth sharing, and share as much as I guess you feel comfortable, where you were able to have these series of mindset shifts in somebody that allowed them to really, go from not getting the job they wanted to the job they wanted? Do you have something like that off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of them. I think something I see occurring often during these interview practice that I do with my clients is that I explain what needs to be done. I explain how it needs to be done. But more importantly, I explain why it needs to be done. A lot of times my clients, they're in college and they're looking for an internship, a co-op, or even their first job out of college. And they went through the co-op or the internship class at school that's required. And they told them, have a good resume, have a firm handshake, tell a good story about yourself. But they never tell them what that means or what that looks like. What is the firm? And sometimes they don't even tell them why that's important. So first of all, what's a good resume? They just tell them over and over again, get a good resume, get a good resume. It's okay, what is that? But then I come in and I show them, well, this is what a good resume looks like. It doesn't have to look like everyone else's, because we're not trying to get everyone else to get a job. We're trying to get you a job. And second, we want to make sure that you know how to use this resume. Why does this matter here? And why is this bullet point here? It's not just a bullet point we did to fill up time.
If you are liking the conversation, be sure to let me know by liking the video and commenting down below what it is specifically you are getting out of it. And if you are interested in learning more about the Microsoft Power Platform, you're going to want to click on the first link down in the description down below to get access to a beginner's Power Platform guide led by me. This is a completely free, self-paced course that has hand-picked knowledge, everything that you need to know to be able to go and get your first Microsoft certification as soon as possible. The reality is not a lot of people can say they love what they do, and I feel very blessed to be able to say that I enjoy what I do for work as a Microsoft consultant. And if you want to start that journey alongside me today, be sure to follow and click on the first link down in the description down below. Now let's get back to the conversation. Ramon, I don't want you to give away your secret sauce here, but what are the 3 pro tips that you would still have? I mean, we've talked about a lot, but what are some other pro tips that you would have for crushing an interview?
Okay, well, actually, I hope no one's listening, because I'm going to give you this secret sauce for this.
Sweet.
So just make sure no one hears about it. Okay, just between you and me and this microphone in between us. But to me, the first thing I would like to do when I start a job search is figuring out what I want. So the first thing is, a lot of times people would say, well, I just need a job to get my internship requirement, my co-op requirement, or, I'm graduating, I need a job, just a job, period, doesn't matter. And I say, okay, I understand that. I've been in that situation before. But it's easier to find a job, and a job that you want, that you love, is if you first sit down and think what you really want. And you can start by thinking, what do you want in 15 years, 10 years, and 5 years? Because that will give you an idea what kind of job you need to get now. So I sit down and say, okay, what do you want? And be specific. Don't just say, I want a good job. No, think about this. And you don't have to have an answer, but you should start thinking about it. So for example, I want a job in this industry, or I want a job at this company. I want a job where I'm doing this kind of thing. I want a job where I'm working with these kind of people. I want my boss to be like this. Or also, especially for more experienced candidates, I don't want my boss to be like this, because they've had experience with what they like or don't like. This is the commute I want to have. This is the title I want to have. This is the kind of money I want to make. So when you think about the things you want, that's a good way to figure out where you can look for it, because you know what you're looking for now. So now you know where to find it. It's like, oh, if I want a job that's 10 minutes commute from my house, okay, it's easy. Let me start Googling on Google Maps what companies are 10 minutes away from me that I want to work at. It solves a lot of these problems. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing I would do when starting a job search is, okay, I know what I want. What can I offer these people? So again, be honest, go through your resume, go through your background, and be honest of what you have to offer. Keep in mind, this is the word I'm using, honest. A lot of times when people do this exercise, they're critical of themselves. They say, well, I'm not the best coder, or I don't have as much experience. I'm like, no. That's being critical. Being honest is saying, I have 3 years of experience on, tech. I know how to code in this language, or I've worked in this industry. That's being honest. Can you get better? Yes, we can all get better. You can have 20 years of experience on 10-year software, and you can still get even more, and that's fine, but that's being critical. Be honest. These are the things I do have. Don't worry about things you don't have. Worry about the things you do have, because that's how you're going to present yourself. So that's the second thing I would do. Think about things you can offer. Again, you might say, well, this other guy or this other girl has more. That's fine. That's their problem. We need to focus on your job search, not on someone else's job search. Think about the things you can offer these people. When you find a match between the things you can offer and the things that you want, that's the company you're going to be working at. Because again, they have what you want and you have what they want. And that's really where you should be focusing your job search. That would be the third step.
Yeah.
So what you can offer, well, first of all, what you want. Second, what you offer. And third step is combine those two and identify those companies, those jobs.
Yeah. Is it valuable to say I'm going through the interview process and whether it's my first job or a career change, is it valuable to interview with like two or three different places at a time? Say you've outlined the things you want, you find two or three matches. Is it valuable to do that? And then if it is, or if somebody finds themselves in that situation, what would be your advice on, say they get two or three offers, like their advice of handling those conversations of ultimately having to, I guess, turn some down?
Yeah, I mean, this is you are a business, so you're the CEO of your career. Recommend you interview with as many companies, as many people as possible, just to see which one's the best fit for you. Um, even when you, I've done it, and my clients have done it. I advise that everyone do this. If you have an offer and you get another interview with some other company, I suggest you take that other interview too. Happen. Uh, you're in the right place. So I've actually, me personally, I've had phone screens the day after my first job, first day at the job at a new company, because I had it scheduled from before I started that job, and it was a backup plan just in case things didn't work out at the place I was at. I have something I'm working on already, another iron in the fire. I've had interviews, like in person, second round interviews, the day before I was supposed to start a job. Again, because they were interested, I wanted to hear them out, just make sure that
Yeah.
I was at the right place. The decision I made was the right one, and yeah, it turned out to be the right one. Not that there was anything wrong with the second company, but I was, oh no, these guys are more or less the same as the one I already have. I'll keep the one I have. People say, well, I
Yeah.
can't do that because I already told them I was going to take the offer, and I made a commitment, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, I get it, I understand. I am very much of that too, of that mindset. But this is a business. If a company, and it's happened before, it will happen again. If a company makes you an offer, offer away the day before you start, even the day of, they can say, you know what, sorry, we don't have a job anymore for whatever reason. Company's going under, hiring freezes, whatever. And they're not going to feel bad about it. Remember, a company doesn't have feelings, so you can't hurt a company's feelings.
Hmm.
So again, if there's no job for you, they're going to take away the job offer, and that's it. And they're not going to pay you. Nothing's going to happen, right? It's just what it is. It's a business. Same thing applies for you. Uh, Obviously, I'm not saying go and just like accept offers willy nilly and just you know leave a trail of destruction in your path. I'm just saying, like, you can change your mind. You can interview. You're running your career, so focus on that. Uh, Wants, and make sure you pick the one that's best for you, based on the
Yeah.
people, on the job, on what you want, on your career path, all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like the next, we already talked about tell me about yourself, but I feel like the next interview question that at least gives me the most anxiety, and I'm sure other people, is the question of how much money do you want to make? Right? How do you coach people through answering that question? Oh my goodness! Like, what are they supposed to say if they're expecting a certain number? What should they say around that number? How should they word it? How do you answer the question? How much money are you looking to make?
I always coach my clients and tell them that first off, uh, we shouldn't talk about money until there's an offer on the table, right? Uh, it's just not something we need to talk about. If they ask you how much money you want to make, what's your salary requirements, I always coach my clients to say, right now I'm focused on the opportunity. Once there's an offer on the table, we can definitely talk numbers. But that's the answer you should give. That is the answer. There's the, well, what about, no, that is the answer. Let's just pretend they
Yeah.
push you some more and they say, well, I need to get an answer, otherwise we're not moving forward on this. I say, oh, okay. Well, can you tell me what the salary range is? And then they have to tell you a number because they know the number. They know a number that they want
Mm-hmm.
to spend. So then tell you that. And, most times I tell people, don't make a decision on the spot. Just say, yeah, that falls within my range too. Don't say like, oh, that's the top of my range, that's the bottom of my range. No,
Yeah.
just say, yeah, that falls within my range. If it's below your range and you're like, well, wait a minute, I was looking for 120. These guys are topping at 70. Maybe that's a good way for you to know, like, okay, maybe this isn't the job for me because they're way under what I'm looking for. You don't have to make a decision right there on the spot. You can always hang up the phone call when you're done. And then afterwards, you say, you know what, I don't want to work there because there's a big difference between what they're paying and what I want. You can send them
Yeah.
an email saying, hey, thank you for the time. I'm not interested in that pay range or whatever. But yeah, you don't have to say numbers. And the reason you don't want to say numbers is because they're going to say, well, he or she said this number, so we're going to stick to that. Also, you don't want to price yourself out because maybe you say, I want to make this much, and the industry's not paying that. So no matter how good of an offer you get, you're not going to hit that number. Just ask them, what's your salary range? And they'll tell you. If they don't
Yeah.
want to tell you, then again, this is a data point you can use to determine if that's someone you want to work. It's like, okay, if these people don't want to share how much money they want to pay, why is that? Like, what else are they going
Yeah.
to hide from me or make it harder for me? An
Sure.
interview, like I mentioned before, you're trying to figure out if you like these people, but also they're trying to figure out if they like you. And this is like a first date. What do you do on a first date? You're both nervous, you're both dressed up, and you both want this to be the last one in a long time, right? No one likes a bunch of first dates. No one likes a bunch of interviews. You want a relationship. You want a job. You don't want a date. You don't want interviews. That's the last thing you want. You want the relationship. You want the job. So same thing here. You're going to an interview, ask these questions, and get your data points. You don't have to make a decision on the spot during the interview, but when you go back home, you look at your notes that you took during the interview, or your mental notes you took during your date, and say, well, he was picking his teeth while we're eating. That's a red flag. He was still talking about his ex. He talked about how he needed me to breathe into his breathalyzer in his car because he had WI. Okay, these are red flags. Maybe those are things. Maybe I shouldn't be with this guy, right? Same thing with the interview. You go to an interview and it's like, well, the interviewer was late. They didn't know who I was. They weren't prepared, and they told me that the last person left because they were too stressed out. It's like, wait a minute, like these are all data points. Uh,
Yeah.
what do I want to work in a place like that? Yes or no? Maybe the opposite is true, right? Or whatever, right? But you're trying to get information, so that's why when you go to an interview, you should also be ready to answer questions, but as importantly as that, you should be able to ask questions so you can get the information you need to determine if that's the place you want to work at.
Yeah. Man, okay, I think that's awesome. I have one last question I want to ask you. I know we're approaching being at time here, where we need to go. You also are very passionate about working with neurodivergent candidates, and that's really important to you. I find that a lot of people in the industry I work in as well consider themselves in as neurodivergent in some capacity, and I can't help but feel like it can be intimidating for that community. What Why do you enjoy working so much with neurodivergent folks, and what kind of success stories can you share from your work with them?
Before I started focusing on college students, which I feel I do almost exclusively now. So I work with college students in technical majors, so computer science, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, that kind of stuff. I was working with C-level executives, so they would hire me to prepare them for interviews. So when I was working with a CEO, CFO, COO, VP of this, VP of that, I was helping those guys and girls, you know, get a better title, put in a senior instead of VP, they were senior VP, uh, that kind of stuff. And that was fun, right? I was helping these people get the things that they wanted. But then at some point, I took on a student as a client, and specifically a student who was neurodivergent. This student was very smart, very dedicated, very educated and talented, but the interview part was messing him up. was tripping him up. He couldn't get past that, and he couldn't get a job, even though he had all the grades, all the classes, all the experience. He just couldn't make it. And to me, helping someone like that, who's very smart, very talented, and very much so asset to any company that would hire him, uh, that really made my work feel like I was making an impact.
Yeah.
So I could help some guy make, $300,000 more, some CEO, or I could help a student start his career. And to
Yeah.
me, that has more of an impact. It's more satisfying, more gratifying to help someone start their career. Someone who maybe most people would have said, "Well, you're autistic. You're never going to get a job. You're on the spectrum. We need, all these people to make accommodations to you." And they would tell me like, "I don't need accommodations. I just need, someone who can teach me how to do this stuff. I'll do it. And maybe I need to take a break every once in a while, or maybe I just need people to explain things in a different way, or I don't know, whatever, right? Um, all I need, I don't need extra things. I just need someone to show me how to interview well, look for a job well. So that's why I focus on that now, on the students, because again, I could help some guy make $300,000 more, or I could help a student start his career. Someone again, so that most people would have written off, and I
Yeah.
didn't. So that's why I do what I do.
Man, I think that's so awesome. I love hearing that because I agree so much. And even not necessarily specifically talking about the neurodivergent community, but even just I feel like college students or all sorts of different people can get a bad rap as maybe being young or underskilled or whatever. And I mean, the reason I'm in the position I'm in today is because people saw the value that I could bring, even though I maybe didn't have the technical expertise at the time, and that I had the skills of being a good consultant, and somebody could teach me the power platform, right? And so that is very much a part of my story, and so I hear that, and I agree. I think there's so many people who have so many valuable skills out there, that are neurodivergent, and just because that is the case doesn't mean that they don't have a perfect place for them in an organization, exercising their skills and bringing value with what they're good at. So I hear you, man. Totally. I think that's so awesome. We are about at time. I want to take us to the after hours happy hour segment of the show. Before we started recording, I mentioned it's approaching dinner time for both of us, and I am absolutely a foodie. But you mentioned that you love to grill. That is a passion of yours. You said you grill about 4 to 5 times a week, and you have 5 different grills. I don't even know what five. I didn't even know there were 5 different grills out there. Um, I mean, I've upgraded to a little thermometer so that I can tell the temperature when stuff is done. That's about my grilling expertise right there. So, I mean, let me know what's going on here with the grill, Ramon.
So, actually, right before this, if you were here in my office with me, you would smell the wood smoke on me because right before this,
Mmm.
I actually finished grilling a chicken. And, people, oh, chicken. Yeah, I do that all the time. Like, that's just normal in my house. It's not like a special occasion. That's just what we do. As far as the grills, I have what we call a stick burner. So it's an old propane tank that was cut open. I have a suitcase one that basically it's the size of the shape of a suitcase, and I can carry it with me on travels, and I can grill.
Yeah.
Uh, I have a Imperial Kamado, which is very similar to a big green egg, which is very popular. But the Imperial
Yeah.
Kamado, the one I have, it's like 60 years old. It's made out of clay. I actually learned how to work clay so I could restore it. So I restored that. I use that. I love it a lot. I have a gas grill, obviously, and that's for when I don't have any time. I just turn that on and cook. And again, that happens like twice a week at my house. So when people tell me, they're like, "Oh, I like to grill," and I say, "Oh yeah, you do," and they say, "Yeah, I grill like 2 times a month." And I was like, "Oh yeah, like that's
Nah, you don't
like
like to
you,
grill.
yeah, I love to grill." So again, I'll smoke, I'll grill, I'll try different techniques. I have a little book where I keep track of my notes of what I do. I so I know you said you had your thermometer. I do it by hand. So I refuse to get a thermometer
Wow.
because I know temperatures by feeling the heat.
Oh
So
man.
that to me that is the challenge, right? Otherwise it's a wash, just put it in the oven, right? But I like the challenge, so I don't have any thermometers or anything like that. Like I learn by touching, basically. Same thing with steaks. How do you want it? Rare, medium, blah, blah, blah. I know by touch. I don't put a thermometer in it. I know it's a
Man.
little bit.
That's
I'm showing
incredible.
off now. Yeah,
Yeah, I was just gonna
like
say you show off. That was good.
yeah, I'm showing off. But again, that's how uh, focused I am on that particular craft. Just like my interviewing practice. Uh, I coach people. I take courses. I go to seminars. I pay coaches to teach me stuff that I can teach my clients. I do the same thing with the grilling. I take classes. I buy books. I take courses. I meet with people. I ask questions. All these things. So again, I'm not just trying grilling. I'm not just trying interview coaching. Like I am a professional in that area, and I make sure I prepare and I practice and I stay up to date. Not just up to date. Actually, try to see what's ahead. So when someone comes to me, I can show them the old ways, the new ways, and the ways they're coming are still not proper yet.
Yeah. Man, that's so awesome. Ramon, thank you so much for being here. I say this every single episode, and I hope it doesn't get old. I'm so thankful for every single person that gives me their time to come on here and just share their expertise. If people were listening to this conversation and were impacted in some way or wanted to inquire about your coaching, what would be the best way that they could reach you?
They could go to my website, persuasiveinterview.com, and they'll find articles and worksheets they can download for free and learn more about my process and some of the success stories I've helped people accomplish. They can also go to LinkedIn. You can look up a name, Ramon Santillan, or you can go to LinkedIn and type in linkedin.com/IM/interview coach, and it'll take you directly to my profile. And again, there you'll see articles I write, success stories from people, recommendations from past clients, testimonials, all that stuff you'll find on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn and my website are the best ways to find it.
Perfect. Sweet. Yeah, I will have linked to those two things down in the description down below. Thank you again, Ramon, for being here. And thank you to you for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lichtfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer channel and Power Talks podcast. And I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.